This is the Sergio Rodriguez Show.
Welcome, everybody, to the Sergio Rodriguez Show, a show unlike any other. Today, week 13 in the NFL, a week that brought us our first losing week with the Sergio Rodriguez picks. Look at our producer, Dennis, laughing because of that. We were 2-4-1 with our picks, bringing our season total to 42, 26, and 3. We were also going to have from the Sports Journey Network, Washington football insider Lake Lewis joining us to discuss a couple of the bigger games that were played in the NFC East, particularly the Giants and the Washington team that went into Pittsburgh and won that game yesterday. And obviously, we're always going to speak about next week's gambling lines and what's going to be going on with that. But before we get started, let's pay some bills. Triangle Ink. Triangle Ink is the leading manufacturer in the screen printing industry, delivering the finest inks for over 35 years. Check them out at triangleink.com or call them at 1-800-524-1592. Paramus Driving School. Safety and professionalism begins with Paramus Driving School, serving the North Jersey area like no other. Contact them at paramisdrivingschool.com or call them at 201-986-8300. Vergona Cranes. Located at 180 West Forest Avenue in Englewood, New Jersey, Vergona Cranes operates 24 hours a day, providing crane rentals, trucking services, and warehousing for storage. Vergona Crane services the New York and New Jersey area. Call them at 201-945-7209 or on their website, vergonacrane.com. Saints, Falcons. What can we really say about this game? Taysom Hill, 27 for 37, 232, 2 touchdowns. He also ran the ball 14 times for 83 yards. It's funny because Lamar Jackson won an MVP last year doing this exact same thing, but all I hear about is how Taysom Hill can't play quarterback in this league. Michael Thomas, 9 for $105. Atlanta, or I should say at 21-16, Atlanta had a shot to win this game. They had 3rd and 2 from the Saints 13, and for reasons known only to them, decide to run the ball on a sweep, lose 7 yards, and then an incomplete pass on 4th down basically was the game. If Matt Ryan was a bit sharper, I think they could have probably won this game, but I mean, he was really off. 19 for 39, 273 and a touchdown. They only ran for 70 yards. That was another issue. Atlanta just could not muster up enough offense. The Saints are now 10-2, but they lose the tiebreaker with Green Bay. So that becomes ultra important as you start jockeying for that 1 seed. They're at Philly, Kansas City, Minnesota, and then at Carolina. They need to go 3-1 if they want to get that 1 seed, in my opinion, or at least to have a shot at the 1 seed. Because Green Bay has Detroit, or they're at Detroit, Carolina, Tennessee, and at Chicago, and they're going to win 3. So you know what? The Saints might have to go 4-0. Or no, 3, because they get to 3-1, then the Bears, the Packers have to go 4-0. But yeah, I think that's the only problem they have, that the tie kills them. Speaking of Green Bay, they beat the Eagles 30-16, but then again, everybody nowadays beats the Eagles. Look, this game was over early in the 4th when Green Bay went up 23-3, and then something happened. The Eagles finally made a quarterback move, go to Hurts, and he put life in that team. They actually had a big play to the Green Bay 9 that got called back on his first drive. Otherwise, this game could have really gotten interesting. They ended up punting on that possession because of a penalty that took away essentially a 40-yard play to Scott. They got a touchdown from Hurts in that next possession on a 4th down play, and then they got to stop. After that stop, they take the punt and they return it back for a touchdown. And now you look up, the game's 23-16. And guess what? They got another stop. And they actually had the ball with a chance to take the lead. And they actually punted the ball to Green Bay, who then ended up with a phenomenal play by Aaron Jones to seal the game. What does Philly do now? That's really the big question out of this. We spoke about Green Bay. We know they have a soft schedule, and they should be okay going forward with those games. They should go 3-1 and be the 1 seed, in my opinion, if New Orleans stumbles. But I think what came out of this game is Philly. What does Philly do? They have $35 million in salary cap, in dead salary cap space next year. Oh, I'm sorry, they have $59 million in dead salary cap for next year. $35 million is actually the salary that Carson Wentz is going to make, which tells you he's got to be on the roster. Are you going to have a backup quarterback like that? And then the year after that is like $25 million. The funny thing is that last year, when Prescott was going through his contract negotiations, a lot of Philly people that I know were telling me how smart they were for signing Wentz early and how dumb Cowboy fans or the Cowboy organization was for not signing Prescott. You look back a year from now and now you fast forward it to now, I think they would kill to not have their quarterback under contract. The Lions shocked the Bears 34-30. And look, a couple of things from this. One, when are the Bears going to fire Nagy? I mean, they got to do that now. He makes a quarterback change, which when the team was 3-0, they struggle. And then yesterday, the defense lets down Mitch. Now, look, I'm not saying Trubisky was great. He was 26 for 34, 267 and a touchdown. But with that defense, that should be enough. The Bears were up 16-3, 16-6, 23-13, and 30-20 in the fourth and lost this game. Stafford, 27 for 42, 402, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Detroit only ran for 60 yards. So, realistically, they were playing from behind, so you knew they were going to throw. Adrian Peterson, who's found a little bit of the fountain of youth, 16 for 57 and 2 touchdowns. Marvin Jones, 8 for 116 and a touchdown. The Bears ran for 140, which is strange. But when you're throwing the ball for over 250, you're going to get more passing, more running lanes. They scored 30 and still lost. That's a problem. The Browns just annihilated the Titans. Now, the score was 41-35, but that game was 38-7 at the half. That was over. Baker Mayfield, sensational. 25 for 33, 334, 4 touchdowns, all in the first half. And let me tell you something. He had one dropped. He had one dropped on the first drive. Otherwise, he would have thrown for 5 in that first half. Finally, a good win on the road for this team. I've been very critical of the Browns, but they finally got a good win on the road, and they did it without a crazy ground game. They ran the ball 36 times, most of it in the second half because they were up by so much, but they only ran for $118. Tannehill with what I would call a Prescott special. If you looked at his numbers, 389, 3 touchdowns, to window dress the score. Davis, 11 for $182 and a touchdown. Henry really didn't do much, 15 for 60 and a fumble. Tennessee will go 11-5 and win this division. And they have the tiebreaker with the Colts because they're 3-1 in the division. The Browns need to win one to have a strong chance to make the playoffs. I think they can go 2-2 here down the stretch. They have the Ravens, at the Giants, at the Jets, and Pittsburgh. If they go 2-2, they're a lock. If they go 1-3, you're going to go into some tiebreakers, but I still think they would have a chance to get in. The Dolphins 19-7 over the Bengals in a game where, the Dolphins have become probably the most unwatchable team in football. Watching the Dolphins is like watching a bad movie once a week. They're terrible on offense. Below average quarterback play. Very little points scored. And the defense, it's a defense and special teams game every time you're watching them. And look, I guess if you're a fan, you're okay with that. And at the end of the day, they're winning games, right? They're 8-4, so you got to roll with it. But they're tough to watch. I mean, that first half was, well, my God, just painful to watch. Gaskins with a solid game. He had 141 all Saquon yards. Gesicki 9 for 88 and a touchdown. Tua threw for 296. Most of that in the second half. 1 touchdown, and he continues to not turn the ball over, which is really good. Cincinnati only had 196 of total yards. We know they're going to struggle without Joe Burrow. I mean, it is what it is. They only had 40 of that rushing. Miami's 8-4, but Miami could be in danger of missing the playoffs. And I'm going to tell you why. They're 8-4, but they have Kansas City, the Patriots, at the Raiders, and at Buffalo. If they go 1-3, they're probably going to be out. They're probably going to be out because Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Tennessee, and Buffalo are locks. The wild cards right now, the way I see it, are Cleveland, the Raiders, and the Colts. Even though the Raiders are a game behind Miami, I think they're going to get to 10 wins. And if Miami doesn't win 2 of these 4 games, they are definitely going to be on the outside looking in. Vikings 27-24 over the Jaguars. The Vikings might be the weirdest team in the NFL. Check this out. They throw for 305. They run for 145. And they still need overtime to beat a 1-win team. Cousins, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. And Cook had 32 for 120. Justin Jefferson, the rookie from LSU, phenomenal game. 9 for 121 and a touchdown. But again, Minnesota wins the time of possession. They rush for more. They pass for more. They win the turnover battle 4-2, and they out first down the Jaguars 30-20, and it still takes a field goal in overtime to win this game. You just can't make it up with the Vikings. But you know what? If the playoffs started today, they're in, and I think they're going to get in because they're 6-6. They have Tampa off the bye. They're probably going to lose at Tampa off the bye. Okay, but moving forward, the Bears at home, winnable. At the Saints, maybe without Drew Brees. And even with Drew Brees, I think they're a team that, Minnesota can go. And at Detroit, it's not the end of the world here. And if they go 8-8, based on what I've seen from the 49ers and Arizona, they're going to be fine. The Jags are locked to the 2 pick, so they won't win a game. So that's probably a great news for the Jets, because even if the Jets won a game, which they almost won against the Raiders, even if they both finish with 1 win, the Jets get the 1 pick based on the tiebreaker. Speaking of the Jets, first, let's give the Jets credit for this. They were down 24-13, have nothing to play for. I mean, we say nothing to play for because they obviously we assume that no one plays for the 1 seed. It just happens. But they have nothing to play for. They still compete. They come back and they take a 28-24 lead in this game. The Raiders, after the 24-13 lead, they go 3 consecutive drives where they punt, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and a fumble. Now they look up, and now they're trailing 28-24. They go 14 plays and turn the ball over on downs and basically feel like their season's over until they get the ball back with a handful of seconds, and Derek Carr finds Suggs down the left sideline with 12 seconds to go because Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator of the Jets, who ends up getting fired after the game, decides to go cover 0. He decides to blitz in a situation where if you just umbrella the situation and just, tackle the carrier, the ball carrier, the clock's going to run out. Goes cover 0. They get beat over the top. The corner, for reasons known only to him, goes for a double move because even if the guy makes the initial move and he catches it, it's a gain of 20. It's not like they were protecting themselves from a field goal. The Raiders needed a touchdown. Just terrible coaching and terrible awareness of the game by the Jet cornerback. Carr, 28 for 47, 381, 3 TDs and a touchdown. Like I said, 72 yards rushing for the Raiders. They struggled, but they didn't have Jacobs in the game. Waller, phenomenal game. 13 for 200 and 2 touchdowns. He's proven himself to be a top 3 tight end in the NFL. The Raiders are 7-5, like I said, but they have the Colts at home, winnable game. Chargers at home, winnable game. Dolphins at home, winnable game. And then at Denver, I think they're going to get to at least 9 wins. They're probably going to get to 10, and that's the case. The Dolphins, I think, are the team that will be out. The Colts, 26-20 over the Texans. And here's the funny thing about this game. If you bet the over in this game, you probably wanted to throw up when this game ended. The total in this game was 50.5. The game was 24-20 at the half. There were only 2 points scored in the second half. There was a safety by the Colts. The Colts had a chance to make it a 7-point game with about 6 minutes to go, and they choose to go for it on 4th and 1. And that's the other story about this year in the NFL. No one wants to kick field goals anymore. Nobody tacks on points. Nobody kicks field goals to get yourself on the scoreboard, particularly these teams playing on the road. I just don't get it. And then Houston comes down. Watson, who had an interception and had a fumble at the 2 going in. I mean, they were coming down. Watson fumbles at the 2 going in. Just terrible. I don't get it. I watch these games and these teams every week, and it's comical to watch these teams continue to not kick field goals, to not make plays that are winning plays to help you, and it might not add up to you at that moment, but it always comes back to haunt you at the end of the game. Rivers, 27 for 35, 285 and 2 touchdowns. Taylor, 12 for 91. Taylor's been playing better. The rookie from the Colts that came in, he was struggling early in the year, but he's really come on strong 2 out of the last 3 games. Believe it or not, there was a T.Y. Hilton sighting. I didn't even know he was in the league anymore. 8 for 110 and a touchdown. Watson, 341, 1 touchdown, 1 fumble, a huge fumble. They also had 2 receivers go over for 100. Kuti with 8 for 141 and Hansen 5 for 101. Colts are 8-4. They're at the Raiders. Tough game. Texans at home. They should be okay with that. At Pitt and the Jaguars. The Colts are going to get to 10 wins. The Rams, 38-28 over the Cardinals. If you bet the under in this game, you probably feel terrible. So the total in this game was 49. Score going into the 4th, 17-14. I mean, after that, 5 touchdowns in the 4th quarter. Goff, 27 for 47, 351 and a touchdown. The Rams ran for 119 and 3 touchdowns. Good win for the Rams. I was one of the guys who thought they were going to lose this game on the road. I even gave the Cardinals as one of my 7 plays this week. Murray, 21 for 39, $173, 3 touchdowns. Got to get bigger chunk plays. He ran for 92 yards. The team ran for 92 yards. Arizona did. But they lost the time of possession 39-21. Hard to get yardage when you don't have the ball. Arizona 6-6 at the Giants, Philly, 49ers, and at the Rams. The Rams, conversely, are 8-4. They're going to win this division. They have the Pats at home, the Jets at home, at Seattle, and then Arizona. They should win. If they go 3-1, they'll lock up the division. The Giants, 17-12 over Seattle. A game that was 5-0 at the half, but I got to give Jason Garrett credit, and I got to give him credit for this. He called a great game. He stayed on course. He didn't allow the game or the struggles of the first half to affect the game plan, and he just pounded the ball, and the Giants ran them out of the facility in the second half. They won the game with 105 yards passing, but they ran the ball for 190. Gallman with a $135 of those 190. Seattle is highly overrated. Highly overrated. They have 8 wins. Atlanta, the Patriots, Dallas, Miami, Minnesota, the 49ers, Philly, and Arizona. Of those teams, Miami's the only team that has a winning record. And realistically, I mean, they just don't have any quality wins. None of the teams that you would consider to be a quality team in the league, they have beaten. They played 2 of them, which were the Rams and the Bills, and they lost to both of them. Seattle plays the Jets, at Washington, Rams, and at 49ers. I don't think they're going to get 3, and if they do, they still lose the tiebreaker. They're probably going to have to go 4-0 if they want to win the division. I just don't see it. The Giants have 2 consecutive home games, and they play 3 out of 4 at home. They have the Cardinals and the Browns. I'm interested to see what that Giant line is. Someone actually did tell me that line opened up as a 2.5-point favorite for the Cardinals. If that is the line, the Giants are probably going to be the play in that game. But last week, the Buffalo game opened up the same way in Arizona versus the 49ers. And by the time it closed, the 49ers were a 1.5-point favorite. I'm interested to see if that line's moved. The Browns follow that for the Giants, and then they're at the Ravens and then the Cowboys at home. The Patriots 45-0 over the Chargers, and this one's simple. I'm not even going to bore anybody with anything about this game. This might be the most boring 45-0 game you'll ever see. The Chargers 188 yards passing and 70 rushing. The Patriots 126 passing and 165 rushing. It was basically a punt block return for a touchdown, a field goal return for a touchdown. Herbert was terrible. 26 for 53, 209 and 2 picks. They better stop throwing the ball or they're going to get this kid hurt. They need a new coach. We know that. Lynn's going to be gone. Cam Newton 12 for 19 for 69 yards, and he ran for 48. The Chiefs, 22-16 over Denver. And Kansas City, the thing that got me about this game is that Kansas City keeps on playing these close games. This is the 4th game in a row where they don't cover. And, look, they win, but you're beating teams like Carolina and Denver too close. You're playing down to your competition. They got to be careful with that. I think they're almost playing the string out before they get to the playoffs. Denver actually led 16-12 late in the 3rd and had 3 possessions to take the lead and went punt, interception to end the game. Mahomes, 24 for 40, 318 and a touchdown. Ran the ball well as a team. They ran for a $134. Kelsey, 8 for 136 and a touchdown. The Chiefs, 11-1. I don't see how they're going to lose another game unless the Saints get them, because they're at Miami, at the Saints, the Falcons, and the Chargers. And, Pittsburgh opened up the door for them for the 1 seed. Speaking of Pittsburgh, Washington 23-17 over Pittsburgh. Huge win. They give themselves a chance in the NFC East because they need to win this outright. They can't tie the Giants because they lost both games to the Giants. Pittsburgh, I felt all along, was not a legitimate 11-0 team. A little better than Seattle based on who they've played. But look, for Washington, it's a great win. They stay relevant, and they're going to play meaningful football through the end of the year. The defense for Pittsburgh, legit. The O-line for Pittsburgh, legit. But they can't run the ball. Again, yesterday, I've been saying this the whole year, but yesterday, 14 carries for 21 yards. Big Ben, 33 for 53. They threw the ball 53 times in a game that was nip and tuck. First of all, they were up 14-0, but they just refused to run the ball. Ben was 33 for 53, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception, and 305 yards passing. Alex Smith, 31 for 46 and a touchdown. They lost Gibson early in the game, and they only ran for 45 yards themselves. But, they figured out a way to get that W. Washington at the 49ers, Seattle, Carolina, and at Philly. They're going to, in my opinion, to give themselves a shot, they're going to have to go 3-1 and hope that the Giants go 2-2. Otherwise, I just don't see how they can push away and get one game above the Giants. Pittsburgh at Buffalo, a game they will lose. At Cincinnati, Indianapolis, and then at Cleveland. So they could get a couple more L's here down the stretch. The Bills, 34-24 over the 49ers. Josh Allen, just simply spectacular. 32 for 40, 375, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks. This game was 17-7 at the half, and it was 34-17 going into the fourth. The game was essentially over. They only ran for 81 yards, and I've been saying this because, Buffalo's one of those weird teams where if you look at their stats say they run the ball well. But the problem is Josh Allen contributes a chunk of that. They need to run the ball better without Josh Allen. They only had 81 yards yesterday. Beasley, 9 for 130 and a touchdown. Mullins continues to show you flashes for the 49ers. Yesterday he threw for 316 and 3 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions. How the 49ers only ran for 86 yards is beyond me. Beyond me. When you have a guy like Mostert playing, that's a given to get 100. The 49ers, 5-7, blew a great opportunity, in my opinion, to get in the playoffs because I don't see them going 4-0. Even though the schedule's not overly hard, you just got to assume that because they're a 5-7 team, they're going to stub their toe at some point, at least once or twice. They have Washington at Dallas, at Arizona, and then Seattle. Buffalo, 9-3, is going to win this division. They have Pittsburgh at Denver, at the Patriots, and Miami. I don't think that Miami game factors into whether they win this division or not. Fairfield Physical Therapy, located in the Fairfield Commons Suite G106, is owned and operated by Justin Solotov, who has 20 years of experience in the field of orthopedic physical therapy. Call Justin at 973-276-1313 and stop living with pain and discomfort. Epic Car Service is recognized as the #1 car service in New York City by medical transportation standards. Located in the Bronx, New York, Epic Car Service will make your commute a safe and comfortable experience. Call Epic at 718-401-3742 or at 844-666-6278. The gambling portion of the Sergio Rodriguez Show is brought to you by Stan Sports. Stan Sports Center is your local full-service authorized team dealer for all of your favorite sports brands. Family owned and operated, Stan's has proudly supplied apparel, uniforms, equipment, varsity jackets, and much more for the entire tri-state area since 1946. Find them online at Stan Sports Center, or actually stansportsctr.com, and contact them today for your sporting good needs. Week 14 of the NFL is going to bring you some interesting games. Let's start with the Rams on Thursday night. The Rams are going to be hosting the Patriots in a game that the Rams have to have if they're going to win this division. I just can't see the Patriots going on the road and putting up 280 yards of offense and winning this game against that defense. I just can't see it. Green Bay is a 7.5-point favorite at Detroit. Expect a lot of points in that game. Detroit's going to be free and loose. Expect a lot of points. Tennessee is also a 7.5-point favorite on the road at Jacksonville. I will say this. Jacksonville, and give them credit, they've been playing everybody tough. Dallas right now is a 3.5-point favorite on the road at Cincinnati, but you don't even know. That line is going to change, in my opinion, because Dallas plays Baltimore tonight, and you don't know what's going to come out of that game. Arizona's a 2.5-point favorite at the Giants. If that line stays that way, the Giants are the play in that game. Houston is a 1.5-point favorite at Chicago. Outdoor, cold weather, bet the Bears. Carolina, 3.5-point favorite at home against Denver. That's going to be a really good game this week. Really good. If you want to watch a game, I think that'll be a really good game. And I like the over in that game, just looking at the numbers early. Minnesota is a dog on the road to Tampa Bay, 6.5. Problem with Minnesota is you can never bet them because you never know what you're going to get. Like I said, they outplayed Jacksonville statistically and still needed a field goal to win that game. Kansas City's a 7.5-point favorite on the road against Miami. Be careful. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, Kansas City has not covered in a while. Definitely not the last 4. Indianapolis is a 2.5-point favorite in Las Vegas. Love the Raiders in this game. Seattle's a 13.5-point favorite at home versus the Jets. The Jets could be paying for the sins. Not for the sins, but the Jets could be paying for what the Giants did to Seattle in that one. Atlanta's a 2.5-point favorite against the Chargers. Expect not only a lot of points, but expect the Chargers to do a lot of damage in this game coming off that performance offensively this past weekend against the Patriots. New Orleans is a 7-point favorite on the road against Philadelphia. You don't know what you're going to get in this game. I would say low scoring. If I had to guess, you're going to have a new quarterback under center for Philadelphia. And, when they put the game plan in, it's going to be different than him just coming in to relief like he did against Green Bay. The 49ers are a 3-point favorite at home against Washington, a game that both teams, if they want a chance to win, are to get in the playoffs, are going to need. Buffalo is a 2.5-point favorite at home against Pittsburgh. What does that tell you? A team that was just 11-1 is a dog on the road against a team like Buffalo, who is good, but a team that's 11-1, Buffalo is the play in this game. And the Monday night game, Baltimore is a 1-point favorite in Cleveland. If that line stays that way, expect Cleveland to win. Lucimer Auto Body, located at 27 Austin Street in Newark, provides top-of-the-line service to make your collision experience as smooth as possible. Go to lucimer.com or call them at 973-824-0113. M&J Luxury Inc. For the most unique experience in the medical transportation, call M&J, located in New York City with over 1,000 cars at your disposal. Call them at 718-278-2222 or 914-484-7264. And joining us right now on the Sergio Rodriguez Show from the Sports Journey Network, the great Lake Lewis. Lake, how are you?
Hey, what's going on, my friend?
Well, look, the Redskins, or they're not the Redskins anymore. I keep on making that mistake.
Don't worry. Don't worry, sir, because the PA announcer in Pittsburgh last night said it a couple times.
Okay, then I guess it's okay. But I'm gonna tell you this: the Washington football team, with a nice win yesterday. Okay, first of all, before we speak about the Redskins, here we go again. Before we speak about the Washington football team and the Giants winning 2 road games, which from a record standpoint looks good. Let's discuss one thing here, okay? Both those teams that they beat, in my opinion, are severely overrated by their record. Let's start with the Giants first before we go into Washington, because that's why I brought you on.
Okay.
All right.
So the Giants go on the road and they beat Seattle. And ESPN's going gaga over this win. Seattle hasn't beaten one team over 500 this year. Not one.
Right.
Okay. Seattle has the second to worst defense in the NFL. Only better than Jacksonville in yardage. Okay. If I were the Giants, instead of being happy that we won a game on the road against what should be really a mediocre to above average team, we should be worried about the fact that we barely got over close to, they didn't even get to 300 yards against a team that gives up 30 points against everybody.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you have to, if you're the Giants, you do have to feel good, though, Serge, because at the end of the day, they're a team that not much was expected from them. And, no one knew anything about their coach. They knew he came from New England. He was a special teams guy. But at the end of the day, the Giants were and also thought, So for them to be able to do what they're doing, or not just, against Seattle, but really over the last 4 or 5 games, they've had a nice run. I think they're 5-2 in their last 7 games, if I'm not mistaken. It's something.
Okay, but Lake, but why? Because in those 7 games, they played Washington twice.
Teams that have, I get it, but this is the thing. And I had this conversation with a friend of mine the other day. He said to me that both Washington and the Giants stink. Those were his exact words. And he said, they're horrible. And
not about horrible.
Well, that's what I told him. I said, no, they're not horrible. He said, what are you talking about? They have losing records. And I said, wait a minute. A horrible team is a team that, they're not just beating themselves. They're getting beat down by their opponent as well. And on top of that, they're not even competitive. Both these teams have been competitive throughout the year. They really have. They've lost some games that, I'm not so sure that if they were to go back and play those games over, if they would win those games. Washington had a bad loss against Detroit. They had a bad loss against the Giants up in New York. They probably should have won both those football games. And I'll give you another game. They actually had the Cleveland Browns on the ropes in the fourth quarter, well into the fourth quarter. If not for Dwayne Haskins' 3 interceptions, they probably were going to win that game as well. So I say that because they've been competitive in pretty much most of their games. They're now finding a way to squeeze these things out at the end, like we saw yesterday. But with the Giants, man, you got to give them credit. I mean, 5 wins. That no matter how you cut it, they went into Seattle and they beat them down. That game wasn't as close as the score showed.
And here's my thing. I give them credit for going on the road and winning a game because in the NFL, anybody can lose to anybody, but it's hard to win on the road. Okay.
Yeah, and they were like
10 or 11 point favorite. 100%. 100%. But
they did what they had to do.
They did, but I guess my issue with them winning is not so much what happened on Sunday, even though, like I said, I feel like that team is a little overrated and overinflated because they really haven't beaten anybody. But my issue is with this belief that all of a sudden, I mean, the back page of the New York Post basically anointed the Giants the Chiefs. That's essentially, and my point is, you've beaten the Washington team twice, the Eagles once, the Bengals, who, by the way, would have probably beat them if Joe Burrow plays, and you got a Seattle team that hasn't beaten anybody over 500. So, look, you take it because it is what it is, and those are the teams that you're playing. But you have to temper this because before that 7-game run that you're talking about, they had given up 90 points in the 3 previous games before that to the 49ers, who are hardly, and they played without Garoppolo, to the Cowboys, who are terrible, and there was another game sprinkled in there in between. But the point is, they gave up 90 points in 3 games before that.
Yeah, and in fairness to this, I think the Giants have the tougher road. When you look at the 4 teams that they have to play, they have to still play the Ravens, who are hungry to get a W. They need to get a W. Cleveland, not only are they 9-3, but now they look at this as at forget making the playoffs. They may be trying to steal their division. And I say that because Pittsburgh plays, if I'm not mistaken, Buffalo this week. That's not a gimme game for Pittsburgh. That could be 2 in a row. Then they have Cleveland.
I think Cleveland showed me a lot going on the road because they were another team that I questioned a lot. They really had not won a signature game on the road either, but they went on the road and they beat a good Tennessee. I mean, they beat down Tennessee. That score is not nowhere near indicative of what a beatdown that was. I mean, that game was 38-7 at the half. And
that got ugly.
Correct. And look, I think the one big advantage the Giants have over the Redskins, over Washington, is that they have the tiebreaker. They can play this to a tie. So if they go 2-2, Washington has to go 3-1, which is not going to happen.
Well, let me say this. I would have said to you before yesterday's game, there was no way Washington would go 3-1 down the stretch. But after that win yesterday, see, Serge, you know this more than anyone. The one thing that happens when you're a young football team and you win games that all of a sudden you start to believe. And I said this, if you go on the road and beat the team with the best record in football, even though we know they're not the best team in football, but they still have the best record in football, and you beat them on the road, why not win the rest of your games when you're playing against teams that don't have winning records?
Okay, so they have the 49ers, correct?
They have the 49ers in Arizona this week.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Winnable game.
Yes.
Go ahead. Who else?
Seattle.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one.
But you know what? It's Seattle coming to Washington.
Oh no! If it's at home, you could beat them. And again, they're not going to go. Yeah, and again, they're. It's a tough game because you always have the spectrum of Russell Wilson looming, but in reality, they're a team that, again, has beaten no one.
You get physical with Seattle, and you see a different team. And I saw the Giants bullying them the other day.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you what I saw in that second half of that Giant game. A professional play caller in Jason Garrett sticking to a game plan that did nothing in that first half. That game was 5-0. But he did not go off course. And he ran the ball down the throat of Seattle.
Yeah. And Seattle's defense isn't good. So the reason why I say this now is I'm not so sure that that's a gimme, loss for Washington or a win for Seattle, because Seattle does not look good on the road. We know that. They're traveling east. It's a game that they're going to start feeling a little tight around the collar too, because now you're losing pace clearly with New Orleans, and now you're going to lose pace with Green Bay possibly. So let's face it. These games, like the game against the Giants with Seattle or perhaps Washington, is kind of like a preview of what you could see in the first round of the playoffs. Seattle on the road coming east, either Washington or New York. There's no way Philadelphia is still in the conversation, and Dallas is not in this conversation. So, again, after Seattle, you have the Carolina Panthers here. That's a winnable game, don't you think?
Correct.
And then you travel to Philadelphia for your final game.
You're right. You're definitely right. You're definitely right. And let me tell you something. Not that the Cowboys, I agree with you. The Cowboys are totally out. They're terrible. But they're playing tonight against, again, an average football team, a 6-5 football team.
Football team that's hungry now.
Okay, listen, they could be starving. At the end of the day, they're only going to throw for 150 yards and they're going to run for 180. If you figure out a way to score, if you figure out a way to score 21 points, you can win that game. To me, the Ravens are like the Virginia of college basketball. You can always upset them because all you have to do is go in there and shoot 35% and you're going to be in the game.
Right. Again, the Ravens' defense is good. They played well enough last week against Pittsburgh, ironically, I thought, to win that football game. But offensively, Robert Griffin, they were terrible.
Listen, the Cowboys stink, but if they were if they were to ever win tonight and they get to 4 wins, I think their schedule shapes up too because they still have the Giants.
I agree. That is a fair point, and I kept someone asked me the other day, did Dallas have a shot? And I said they're not technically out of it, but they have to win tonight.
They have to win tonight.
You lose tonight, it's over. It's over.
1,000%.
But if you win tonight, you're right. They actually have a very favorable stretch, and the fact is, they play the Giants, and they already got them. You know what I mean? Correct. So you have a chance to do something still. Philadelphia is not in the conversation. They've just got too much stuff going on.
Really quick, because I know you have a couple of interviews to do. I was very wrong about Alex Smith. When I saw him play the first time this year when he came in, I thought he was done. He clearly was scared that first day, but once he got going, I think he realized now he can play, and you're seeing the Alex Smith that is... Listen, he was never a Hall of Famer, but he's really damn good as an NFL quarterback.
And he's a winner.
Correct.
I told someone, show me another quarterback for Washington that has the winning pedigree as far as just every time he starts. This team, to give you a better understanding, what are they, 3-1 in the games he started since he's come back?
Correct.
And before he got hurt, they were 6-3. So you tell me what quarterback you can recall in our adult lifetime that had 9 wins and just 4 losses.
No, listen.
I'll wait. You got to go back to Mark Rippon.
100%.
You have to go back. Yep. So again, he's done more in the short amount of time he's been on the field. And the reason why they have success with him is because, I hate to use that term game manager because it sounds kind of disrespectful to players, but he's really good at orchestrating the offense as far as making sure guys are where they're supposed to be. He brings a level of calmness to these players, especially a young team. But the other thing about Alex that stands out, not a lot of guys tell me this, 2 years ago when he came here, they just couldn't believe how just one of the guys he was. Like, he's a guy that's really, he's not a prima donna quarterback. He's not. He's a guy that puts in the work, the film study, all of the above. But he also still, he said the guy would do things with the linemen. The guys would do stuff with linebackers. He's one of the guys. And how can you not respect that and see what he's come back from? These guys believe that he can take them where they need to go.
Who's the best team in the NFC?
Whew. It's crazy as it sounds. To me, it's a tie right now. It's tough because I just think that, New Orleans, they just have everything clicking, even with Hill. But I'm concerned that when Breeze comes back, as crazy as this may sound, Serge, does he mess up everything? He'll give him more offense. But the other team that clearly you have to look out for just because they have that guy at quarterback, and that's Aaron Rodgers. I'm not sold.
Nah, I think they get bullied too. Every time if the score is close, I feel like they get bullied, and I don't know. I just don't get it. For a cold weather team, they play like they're a team from Miami.
Well, I just think that sometimes when you have a guy like that is a Hall of Famer, a lethal weapon. Sometimes you depend on that too much. And the last time I looked, when they were really successful last year, before obviously they got in the playoffs and got steamrolled by San Francisco, Aaron Jones was a guy that was just running the football. Jamal Williams, they were hammering teams running the ball, and sometimes they get away from that. So I think this year, you should have learned your lesson from last year that you don't have to make every game a track meet. And I think if the Packers can play balanced football, they've got just as good a shot as anybody in the NFC. But I'm going to say this. You said who are the best teams? Those 2 teams are clearly right now the best. I don't necessarily believe that they're the teams that are going to get to the Super Bowl, though.
A lot of that. Yeah, but a lot of that depends on matchups. I think if the Rams get the right matchup, they're the ones that have probably the least issues.
Well, that's the team that I'm right now. Because, see, I had Seattle and the Ravens in the Super Bowl. and it's still a possibility. Slim. But at the end of the day, the Rams to me are the most balanced out of all the teams. And now that the young running back from Florida State's starting to get going, they're starting to produce a nice running game to go take pressure off of Goff. But they've got so many weapons and Cup and Woods and the other. I can't even think of the other receiver's name.
Here's the issue. Here's the issue with the Rams. The only issue that I see with the Rams, and I know most people are going to say it's Goff, but to me, when he's proven that he could get you there, I'm not even going to go there. The problem with them is that it almost seems like they have to trick you to score. So if they stay in the game and they score early in the game with their scripted plays, they're going to be a problem. But if you get through that first quarter and that first 15 or 20 offensive plays and they don't trick you because they give you all this eye candy going one way and come back the other, if you stay on course, they will struggle the rest of the game to score.
Yeah, you made a great point there. That is one of the things, even when Sean McVay was here, he's one of the best game managers as far as scripting, the first couple series of plays. I mean, he might be the best. He's phenomenal. As the games start to weigh on you, you do see that a lot of the stuff they do is I don't want to use the word gimmicky, but it is. It's like you said, they're trying to catch you off guard in certain sets. And if teams stay home, you see the Rams at times struggle offensively. You really do. But this is the thing. Their defense is so good now that they can get away with that more so than in years past. Flip side of it is the defense played pretty good against New England in that Super Bowl. The offense couldn't do anything. So
yeah. Two things before I let you go. Number one, how good is my man Josh Allen?
Listen, he's good. He's good. I need to see. We're talking about Buffalo, Josh Allen.
Oh yeah.
He needs to beat Pittsburgh for me because Buffalo's right now one of those teams that's teetering. Like they looked really good early, and I don't want to use the word that they peaked too soon, but they, people hadn't really had a chance to put it all together. As far as how they game planned Buffalo's offense and the film study. Well, now people know that they're a good football team, but to be great, you've got to go out and beat other teams that have great records at least. I don't think Pittsburgh is great. But I think that Buffalo, if they can win this game, it'll do wonders for them because there's another team, and it might sound crazy, Serge. New England is not necessarily dead and done.
They're not. And let me tell you something. He's done a phenomenal coaching job. That team's 6-6. And not only 6-6, but Cam Newton throws for damn near 60 yards every game. Let me tell you, Cam Newton's terrible. I don't care what anybody says. He's terrible.
They're clearly going to be drafting a quarterback. I don't even think that's an issue. But no, you're right. I think, what you see, and I'm actually glad we're seeing it. You see that Belichick and Brady miss each other.
100%.
That's what you're saying.
100%.
You're seeing that their success was joined at the hip. And there's nothing wrong with that. Give me 6 Super Bowls, and I'll give all the credit in the world to my coach. Who cares?
Hey, the last thing, I could not let you go without you telling me how the hell Georgetown. For everybody that never listened to our show when we were at ESPN, Lake, although Lake played basketball at Penn State, he's a Georgetown. He also went to Georgetown. Lake always reminded me how many degrees he has, but Lake is a Georgetown guy, and let me tell you something. How the hell did Georgetown lose to Navy? Navy.
And you know what? It just. I'm watching them, and I'm saying to myself, now I see why Mac McClung transferred. I don't know, man. Like, you told me a couple years back, and I'll never forget. I thought you'd be happy that, St. John's, your school, had Chris Mullen coming in as coach, and you said you do not like the nostalgia hires. You hate it. They need to step out of the box and do something different. And all this does is appeases the alum, but they're not going to win games. I'm not saying that necessarily about Ewing yet, because he's only been there and he walked into a mess.
He paid his dues.
Yeah, and he paid his dues. He's qualified as a coach. He's an NBA coach.
Correct.
But he has to have another recruiting class to make up some stuff, because this basketball team I'm looking at right now, it's one of those typical Georgetown teams. I'll never forget, you told me when you saw Georgetown, every year you would see them against St. John's, you just couldn't believe how big they were. They were like the biggest teams you'd ever
100%.
seen. That's this Georgetown team. They're huge, but they can't shoot.
They can't shoot. They can't shoot past. They can't shoot past a rebound, but they're big.
Yeah, and they can't shoot. And then the other thing is they don't have, like, the kid Blair is good. I like his game. But, I mean, we're not talking about a first-round NBA player, so they don't have a guard that can create their own shot and create tempo. And, today's game is all about guard play. If you got a solid backcourt, you can win a national championship with nothing. If anything, you have to have a point guard and a guy that can score from the wing. They don't have either right now.
The weird thing is they then go and they play a great game against West Virginia, who should have beaten Gonzaga. And I will tell you, though, tonight they have Coppin State. And Coppin State, I watched Coppin State. I saw about a half of the Coppin State-Duke game. Don't ask me why, okay? But you know how I am with college basketball. So I watched a half of Coppin State-Duke. Coppin State only lost by about 10 or 12 to Duke, and Coppin State can fill it up from the backcourt. They will score today. They're going to get to 70 points. And let me tell you something. They're not Fang Mitchell's Coppin State team, but these guards at Coppin State can play.
Yeah, they're Baltimore kids. I mean, they're tough too, But I'll say this, in fairness to the Duke thing, I don't think Duke's that good.
No, Duke's not that good. And by the way, Kentucky gets beat by Richmond. Kentucky's 1-3, gets beat by Richmond. I said to my cousin Alex, who's a big Kentucky fan, I said, "You guys keep on messing up the RPI for Richmond."
Hey man, listen, you knew it was going to come back around sooner than later. You can't keep retooling these recruiting classes every year.
You're going to miss hit. Yeah.
Calipari's not doing like what Krzyzewski and Self and the Roy Williams do, where they keep two great players and bring in two more, and then you got four out on the court. No, Calipari's having to basically recruit a new starting five every year, and that starting five is always a bunch of freshmen.
Correct.
That's impossible to keep winning like that. It's just impossible, and especially in today's game with COVID. The teams that are going to win are going to be these upper class senior laden teams from these mid majors who are used to playing together because they already have worked out and practiced for years with each other. Well, now when you're bringing in these new kids, they're basically just starting to get at it as far as game situations. They've practiced against each other for about a month or so now, but as far as in game situations, we're talking 2-3 weeks before you know it. March Madness is here.
Correct.
It's going to be wide open this year. We may have a Final Four of 4 mid-majors that no one even knows about.
Lake, man, thank you for your time. I know you got a million things to do. I know Tuesdays are always hard for you, but I appreciate you giving me 20 minutes here.
All right, my friend. Anytime, man. Let me know and let everybody know. Your show's up on the site on sportsjourney.com. Go into the podcast and you'll see you're up there. So appreciate it, my friend.
You got it. Lake Lewis from the Sports Journey Network. And you've been listening to the Sergio Rodriguez Show, a show unlike any other.